Ethan is a spoiled, arrogant rich kid. Just hours ago he was casually playing games, tossing money onto the table and looking down on everyone around him. But when he's left behind on a highway rest stop, robbed of his cash and wandering alone in the cold night, he experiences true helplessness for the first time. That's when a poor elderly security guard steps forward, takes him home, gives him food and a place to sleep. And what that old man does next will change him forever. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. The rest stop sat quiet under the late afternoon sun, just another concrete island along the interstate where travelers grabbed coffee and stretched their legs. Inside the small convenience store, Ethan sat slouched in a plastic chair, earbuds jammed in his ears, thumbs dancing across his phone screen. He didn't look up when his parents walked past, didn't acknowledge them at all. The rest stop was quiet. Ethan sat slouched in a plastic chair, thumbs moving across his phone screen. Earbuds blocked out everything around him. Across from him, his feet rested on another seat. Nike limited edition sneakers, $300 a pair, dirty soles right on the furniture. The jacket hanging on his chair probably cost more than the attendant made in a week. "Excuse me, young man." A rest stop attendant approached, carrying a tray with a wet cloth. "I need to wipe down this table." Ethan pulled out one earbud, barely glancing up. "So wipe it. Could you move your feet, please?" He rolled his eyes but didn't move. The attendant reached around him carefully, trying to clean what she could. As she stretched to reach the far corner, her elbow caught the edge of Ethan's open soda can. It tipped, spilling across the table and dripping onto his expensive sneakers. Ethan jumped up. "Are you serious right now? I'm so sorry. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean to?" His voice rose, loud enough that other travelers turned to look. "Do you have any idea how much these cost?" "Of course you don't. You probably make minimum wage." The woman's face flushed. She grabbed napkins, trying to help, but Ethan jerked his foot away. "Don't touch them. You've done enough damage." "Ethan," his father's voice cut through the space. Both parents had appeared at the table, their expressions tight. "That's enough. She ruined my shoes. It was an accident," his mother said quietly. "Apologize. Apologize. For what? She's the one who..." "Now." His father's tone left no room for argument. Ethan stared at them, jaw clenched. Then he looked at the attendant, who stood there with her handful of napkins, eyes down. "Fine. Whatever. Sorry." The word came out flat, empty. The woman nodded and hurried away. "Your behavior is unacceptable," his mother said, keeping her voice low. "We taught you better than this. She should watch what she's doing. Isn't that her job, to serve people?" His father's expression hardened. "People aren't beneath you because they work in service. I didn't say they were beneath me. But we're paying customers. Money talks, right? Isn't that what you always say in your business meetings?" Ethan pulled out his wallet, thick with bills. He peeled off 320s and tossed them on the still wet table. "There, that should cover it. Maybe she can buy herself some coordination lessons." He shoved his wallet back in his pocket, jammed both earbuds in, and walked away before either parent could respond. The automatic doors slid open, and he stepped outside into the parking lot, anger buzzing in his chest. Behind him, through the glass doors, his parents stood at the table. They didn't follow him. They didn't call his name. His mother looked at his father. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then his father pulled out his phone, typed a quick message, and put it away. They picked up their coffee cups, gathered their things, and walked toward the exit, but they turned right, toward the parking lot's far end, away from where Ethan had gone. A man in a plain gray jacket, sitting in the corner of the rest stop, set down his newspaper. He watched Ethan through the window, then glanced at his own phone as it buzzed. He read the message, nodded to himself, and stood up. He walked to his car, started it, and backed into a spot with a clear view of the parking lot entrance. Then he waited. 15 minutes later, Ethan came back inside. His anger had cooled enough that he'd realized the time. They needed to get back on the road if they were going to reach the hotel before dark. He pushed through the doors, scanning the seating area. Not there. He checked the restrooms. Empty. A small knot of worry started in his stomach. He walked quickly to the parking lot. Their car was gone. Ethan stood in the empty parking space, staring at the oil stain on the pavement where the vehicle had been. He pulled out his phone, his fingers suddenly clumsy. He called his mother. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. He tried his father. Same thing. "This isn't funny," he said out loud to no one. He looked around the parking lot, expecting to see their car circling back, his parents ready to deliver some lecture about respect and gratitude. But the minutes ticked by. 5, then 10. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the pavement. A cold wind picked up, cutting through his designer jacket that looked good but wasn't actually warm. Ethan called again, and again. Voicemail every time. "They're just trying to scare me," he muttered. "They'll come back." But as the 20th minute passed, then the 30th, the certainty in his voice began to crack. He sat down on the curb, phone clutched in both hands, watching every car that pulled into the lot. None of them were his parents. In a car 3 rows back, the man in the gray jacket adjusted his rearview mirror and settled in for a long wait. He had his orders. Watch, don't intervene unless absolutely necessary. Let the boy learn. He pulled out a thermos of coffee and poured himself a cup. This was going to be an interesting few days. By the time the sun touched the horizon, Ethan had called his parents 47 times. His phone battery showed 15%. The rest stop was emptying out as the dinner hour approached. Travelers either settled in for the night at nearby motels or pushing through to their destinations. Ethan stood up from the curb, his legs stiff. Fine, if they wanted to play this game, he'd just get home himself. How hard could it be? He had money, he had a phone, he wasn't some helpless kid. He walked back inside and approached the counter where a different attendant was working the evening shift. Excuse me, how do I get to the city from here? The woman looked up from her magazine. Which city? The city. You know, downtown. The financial district. She blinked. Honey, there's 3 major cities within 100 miles of here. You need to be more specific. Ethan's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone and showed her his home address. Oh, that's a good ways from here. You're looking at maybe 80 miles. You'll need to catch a bus into town first, then transfer to the metro line. Where's the bus stop? About 2 miles down the road, but the last bus already left for the day. Next one's not till 6 tomorrow morning. 2 miles. Ethan stared at her. How am I supposed to get there? She shrugged. Walk, I guess. Or wait till morning. There's a motel another mile past the bus stop if you need somewhere to stay. Ethan's hand tightened around his phone. Fine, he could walk 2 miles. He'd walked 2 miles on the treadmill at his gym plenty of times. He turned and pushed back outside. The temperature had dropped with the sunset. His breath came out in small clouds. He started walking along the shoulder of the access road, his expensive sneakers crunching on gravel. Within 10 minutes his feet hurt. These shoes were made for looking good, not for hiking along highways. Headlights swept past him, car after car, none of them stopping. Of course they didn't stop. Didn't anyone help people anymore? He'd been walking for maybe 30 minutes when he saw the bus stop shelter ahead, a dim light illuminating the bench inside. His feet were killing him now, blisters forming at his heels. He practically fell onto the bench, breathing hard. Rough day. Ethan jumped. A man sat at the far end of the bench, half hidden in shadow. He was maybe 40, wearing a rumpled jacket and a friendly smile. Yeah, you could say that. Waiting for the morning bus. I guess so. The man nodded sympathetically. That's a long wait. Cold night too. He paused, studying Ethan. You look like you've got somewhere important to be. Home. I just need to get home. Where's home? Ethan told him. The man whistled low. That's a trek. The bus'll get you partway, but you're looking at multiple transfers. Could take all day. He leaned forward. You know, my brother-in-law runs a car service. Private rides. I could give him a call, see if he's available. He could have you home in under 2 hours. Ethan perked up. Seriously? Sure. Cost you a bit more than the bus, but way faster. What's your budget? Without thinking, Ethan pulled out his wallet and showed the cash inside. $400, all in 20s. Is this enough? The man's eyes lit up for just a second before his friendly expression returned. Oh yeah, that'll cover it and then some. Let me just give him a call. He stood up, pulling out a battered cell phone. Tell you what, it's loud out here with the traffic. Let me just step over there where I can hear better. You stay put, okay? Keep your stuff safe. He started to walk away, then turned back. Hey, actually, can I borrow your phone? Mine's almost dead and I need to text him the pickup address. Something flickered in Ethan's mind, but he was tired, cold and desperate. The man had such a friendly face, and he was helping, wasn't he? Sure. Ethan handed over his phone. Great. And hey, better give me the wallet too. My brother-in-law will need the payment up front. Company policy. Ethan hesitated. Can't I just pay when he gets here? Normally, yeah, but this late at night, he won't come out without payment secured first. Too many people flake on late calls. But don't worry, I'll hand it right to him, and he'll give you a receipt. The man's smile was so reassuring, so trustworthy. Ethan pulled out his wallet and handed it over. Perfect. Be right back. The man walked around the corner of the shelter. Ethan heard him talking, though he couldn't make out the words. He waited, shivering, wrapping his arms around himself. 1 minute passed, then 2. Hey, Ethan called out. Everything okay? No answer. Ethan stood up and walked around the shelter. The area behind it was empty, just trash cans and a chain-link fence leading to an empty field. The man was gone. Ethan's wallet was gone. His phone was gone. For a long moment he just stood there, his brain refusing to process what had happened. Then the reality crashed into him like a physical blow. No. He ran to the edge of the field, scanning the darkness. Nothing. No movement. No sound except the distant rush of traffic on the highway. Come back, he screamed into the empty night. That's mine. Come back. But the darkness swallowed his words, giving nothing back. Ethan sank to his knees on the cold pavement, hands pressed to his head. $400. His phone, his ID, everything, gone. And for the first time in his life, Ethan realized that money couldn't fix what happened when you had no money.
The night pressed down on Ethan like a weight. He'd walked back toward the rest stop, but it had closed for the night, metal shutters pulled down over the entrance. The parking lot was empty now except for one semi-truck, its driver presumably asleep in the cab. Ethan tried the doors anyway. Locked. He cupped his hands against the glass and peered inside. Dark. Empty. The bathrooms were inside. Unreachable. So was warmth. So was any hope of help. He was alone. The wind picked up, cutting through his jacket. His stomach growled, a hollow ache that reminded him he hadn't eaten since lunch, back when he'd been a different person, back when he'd had parents and money and a phone and a future that extended beyond this parking lot. He found a bench near the building's side wall, partially sheltered from the wind. He sat down and pulled his knees to his chest, trying to conserve warmth. The metal bench was so cold it hurt to sit on. Hours passed. Ethan didn't sleep. How could he? Every sound made him jump. Every passing car made him hope irrationally that his parents had come back, but they never did. The cold seeped into his bones. His teeth chattered. His fingers went numb inside his pockets. He thought about the thermostat at home, how he'd complained when his mom set it at 68 instead of 72, how he'd demanded she adjust it because he was freezing. He hadn't known what freezing meant. When the first gray light of dawn touched the sky, Ethan's whole body ached. He stood up, his joints creaking like an old man's. He needed water, food, warmth, something. He started walking, no destination in mind, just moving to generate heat. The access road stretched out in both directions, empty and unwelcoming. He chose a direction at random and walked. After what felt like hours but was probably only 45 minutes, he came to a small park, just a patch of grass, some playground equipment, and a covered pavilion with picnic tables. But in the corner, he saw an old man with a push mower, cutting the grass in neat rows. Ethan stumbled toward him, his legs weak. "Excuse me, sir." The old man looked up. He was maybe 70, with weathered skin and kind eyes. He turned off the mower. "You all right, son? You look half frozen." The man's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "When's the last time you ate?" "Yesterday. Lunch." The old man nodded slowly, taking in Ethan's expensive but dirty clothes, his hollow eyes. "Wait here." He walked to an old pickup truck parked nearby, and returned with a paper bag. Inside was a sandwich, slightly squashed, and a bottle of water. "Made this for my lunch, but you need it more than me." Ethan took it with shaking hands. "Thank you." He tore into the sandwich, not caring that it was just plain peanut butter and jelly. It was the best thing he'd ever tasted. The water was even better, cold and clean, washing the dust from his throat. The old man watched him eat, then said, "Name's Henry. What's yours?" "Ethan." "Well, Ethan, you want to tell me why you're out here alone?" Ethan explained, leaving out the parts that made him look bad, just focused on being left behind and robbed. Henry listened without interrupting. "That's a rough situation," Henry said when Ethan finished. "You got family you can call?" "My phone got stolen with everything else." Henry pulled out his own phone, an old flip model. "Use mine." Ethan took it and dialed his mother's number. He knew it by heart, had never needed to actually remember it before since it was just programmed in his phone. It rang, and rang. No voicemail this time, just endless ringing until the call disconnected. He tried his father. Same thing. "They're not answering." Henry took his phone back and studied Ethan's face. "You got anywhere else to go? Friends nearby? Other family?" "No. Everyone I know is in the city." "That's a problem." Henry rubbed his jaw, thinking, "Look, I've got a small place near here. Nothing fancy, but it's warm and there's food. You can stay in my tool shed tonight while we figure something out. Can't have you freezing out here." Ethan felt something crack inside his chest. This stranger, this old man with calloused hands and worn clothes, was offering help. Real help. Not because he had to, not because there was anything in it for him, just because it was the right thing to do. "I don't deserve this," Ethan whispered. "Deserve's got nothing to do with it, son. You're in trouble. I can help. It's that simple." They walked together to Henry's property, about half a mile down a dirt road. It was modest, a small house with peeling paint, a vegetable garden, and a chicken coop. The tool shed was barely bigger than a closet, but it had a space heater and an old sleeping bag. "It ain't much," Henry said, "but it'll keep you warm." That evening Henry brought Ethan a plate of food, chicken and rice, simple but filling. They sat together on Henry's back porch as the sun set. "I've got to fix my fence tomorrow," Henry said, pointing to where several posts had fallen. "If you're staying, you're working." "Fair, fair," Ethan agreed. The next morning, Henry woke him before dawn. "Time to earn your keep." The work was brutal. Digging post holes in half-frozen ground, mixing concrete, holding posts steady while Henry secured them. Ethan's hands blistered within the first hour. His back screamed. His expensive sneakers filled with mud. "I can't do this," he gasped, leaning on the shovel. "Then don't," Henry said simply. "But the fence won't fix itself. And come tomorrow morning, my chickens are gonna get out and the neighbors' dogs are gonna get in. Then nobody eats." Ethan looked at the chickens, pecking peacefully in their coop. He thought about the eggs Henry had made for breakfast. He picked up the shovel and kept digging. By lunch, 3 posts were set. Ethan's whole body shook with exhaustion. Blisters had formed and popped on his palms, leaving raw, weeping skin. He sat on the ground, hands trembling, close to tears. Henry handed him work gloves. "Should have given you these at the start. My mistake. Why didn't you?" Because you needed to feel it. Soft hands never learned a hard lesson. They worked until sunset. When the last post was secured, Ethan collapsed on the grass. He couldn't remember ever being this tired, this sore, this completely used up. Good work, Henry said, standing over him. Fence'll keep the animals safe now. The whole neighborhood benefits from what you did today. Ethan looked at his hands, bloody and raw. I didn't do it for the neighborhood. No, you did it to survive, to earn your keep, but the result's the same either way. Good work helps people whether you mean it to or not. That night, in the tool shed, Ethan cried for the first time since being left behind, not because he was hurt or scared, but because he'd spent an entire day doing something that mattered, and nobody had paid him. Nobody had praised him beyond those 2 words from Henry, and somehow it felt more valuable than anything he'd ever been given. 2 days after Ethan arrived, Henry approached him at breakfast. I've got a friend, Mary, lives about 3 miles from here. She's got more space than I do, and she's better equipped to help you figure out how to get home. I talked to her yesterday. She's willing to help. Ethan felt a flash of panic. Henry had become familiar, safe. The thought of leaving made his stomach knot. Can't I just stay here? My place is too small, son, and Mary's got kids. You'd be better off there while we work on getting you home. Henry packed a worn duffel bag with some of his own clothes, oversized but clean, and a few supplies. They set out after lunch, walking along the shoulder of the rural road. No cars passed, just fields on either side, brown with winter dormancy. They'd been walking maybe 20 minutes when Henry stopped abruptly, his hand going to his lower back. You all right? Ethan asked. Old injury acting up. Give me a minute. Henry eased himself down onto a fallen log by the roadside, his face tight with pain. He stretched carefully, breathing slow. Ethan stood there, shifting his weight from foot to foot. The sun was getting lower. At this rate they'd be walking in the dark, and Henry wasn't moving, just sitting there, eyes closed, working through whatever pain had seized his back. How much longer? The words came out sharper than Ethan meant them to. Henry opened one eye. As long as it takes. Ethan exhaled hard through his nose, frustration building in his chest. This was taking forever. They should have driven, should have called someone, should have done anything except this slow, painful walk. He looked at the duffel bag sitting on the ground next to Henry. It wasn't heavy, maybe 15 pounds, but Henry had been carrying it the whole way without complaint. Ethan stared at it, then at Henry, still sitting, still breathing through the pain. Something shifted in Ethan's chest. Not a big thing, just a small crack in the wall of his own selfishness. He picked up the bag. Let me carry it. Henry looked at him, surprised. You don't have to. I know. Ethan slung it over his shoulder. But you do have to walk 3 miles with a bad back. So let me do this part. They sat in silence for another few minutes while Henry's back loosened. When the old man finally stood, he moved carefully, like his spine was made of glass. They started walking again. After about 10 steps, Ethan noticed Henry's limp. Is it getting worse? I'll manage. You're limping. I'm old. I always limp. But the limp was getting more pronounced with every step. Henry's breathing was shallow, controlled, the kind of breathing people did when they were trying not to show pain. Ethan stopped walking. Henry took 2 more steps before noticing. What's wrong? Henry asked. Come here. What? Just come here. Henry limped back, confused. Ethan shifted the duffel bag to one shoulder, then offered his other arm to Henry. You're going to hurt yourself. Lean on me. Son, I don't need. Yeah, you do. I can see it. So stop being stubborn and lean on me. For a long moment, Henry just looked at him. Then, slowly, he put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan felt the old man's weight shift, taking pressure off the bad leg. They walked the rest of the way like that, slowly, carefully, Ethan adjusting his pace to match Henry's, feeling each time the old man's grip tightened when pain shot through his back. It took almost 2 hours to cover the remaining distance. By the time Mary's house came into view, a small ranch-style home with a neat garden, the sun was setting. Ethan's shoulder ached from carrying the bag and supporting Henry's weight, but he didn't complain. Mary met them at the door, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and worn hands. Henry, you look terrible. Get inside and sit down. As Henry eased himself into a kitchen chair, Mary looked at Ethan, then at the duffel bag he was carrying, then at how carefully he was supporting Henry. You must be Ethan. Yes, ma'am. Henry said you needed help getting home.
Yes, ma'am. Well, come on in. Let's see what we can do. As Ethan stepped through the door, Henry caught his eye and gave a small nod. No words, just acknowledgement. One person seeing another do something good, without being asked, without expecting reward. It was the smallest gesture, but it made Ethan stand a little straighter. Mary's house smelled like dinner, something with onions and garlic. The kitchen was small but spotless, everything in its place. Ethan could see through to a living room where 2 kids sat on a threadbare couch, doing homework on a coffee table. You can sleep on the couch tonight, Mary said, already moving toward the stove where something simmered. Kids'll sleep in my room. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. I don't want to put you out. Too late, you're already here. But she smiled when she said it. You eaten? Not since lunch. Then sit. Henry, you too. You're not walking home in that condition. Henry tried to protest, but Mary gave him a look that ended the conversation. They all sat around a small kitchen table, scratched and worn but clean. Mary served stew, ladling it into mismatched bowls. The kids came in without being called, a girl about 12 and a boy maybe 8. Lucy, Tommy, this is Ethan. He's staying with us for a bit. Ethan, these are my kids. Lucy looked at him with open curiosity. Tommy just nodded and started eating. The stew was simple but good. Real vegetables, chicken that had been stretched to feed more people than it should. Ethan ate slowly, watching this family move around each other with practiced ease. Mary asking about homework, Lucy talking about a test, Tommy describing a game at recess. Normal things, poor things Ethan's old self would have said. But sitting there with a full bowl and warm walls around him, it didn't feel poor, it felt like something else, something he didn't have a word for. After dinner, Lucy and Tommy cleared the table without being asked. Mary washed dishes while Henry dried, the two of them talking quietly about neighborhood news. Ethan stood awkwardly in the doorway, not sure where he fit. You can help me with the table if you want, Lucy said, wiping it down with a damp cloth. Ethan took the cloth when she offered it and finished the corners she couldn't reach. Mom says you got lost, something like that. That's scary. Yeah, he folded the cloth, handing it back. Yeah, it was. That night, lying on the couch with a thin blanket Mary had given him, Ethan stared at the ceiling. Through the wall he could hear Mary reading to Tommy, her voice soft and patient. Lucy was in there too, he thought. The whole family crammed into one bedroom so a stranger could sleep in their living room. At home, Ethan had his own bedroom, his own bathroom, his own everything. He'd never had to share space, never had to make room for anyone else's needs. If he wanted something, it appeared. If something broke, it was replaced. Simple. But this family shared everything because they had to. One bathroom, one car, one income, and still they'd made room for him without hesitation. Ethan thought about how he treated the rest stop attendant, how he'd talked to his parents, how he'd acted like the world owed him something just for existing. Shame burned in his chest, hot and uncomfortable. He heard Mary's reading stop, heard her say goodnight to the kids. A few minutes later she came out to check on him. You need anything? Extra pillow? No ma'am, this is good, thank you. She nodded, then hesitated. Henry told me a bit about your situation, about your parents. Ethan tensed, waiting for judgment. I don't know why they left you, Mary continued, but I know they must have had a reason. Parents don't abandon their kids without one. They were teaching me a lesson. Must be an important one then. She sat on the arm of a chair across from him. You know what I teach my kids? That everything costs something. Not just money. Time, effort, sacrifice. When Lucy wants new shoes, she knows she has to wait while I save. When Tommy wants a toy, he does extra chores. They learn that nothing's free, even in your own family. I never had to learn that. I know, sweetheart. I can tell. But her voice wasn't mean, just honest. The question is whether you're learning it now. She stood up, smoothed her worn jeans. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll see about getting you home. After she left, Ethan pulled the thin blanket up to his chin. At home he had a down comforter, Egyptian cotton sheets, pillows that cost $100 each. This blanket was probably from a discount store, the fabric rough against his skin. But he was warm, he was safe, he was fed, and for the first time since being left behind, he thought maybe his parents had been right. Maybe he had needed this. Not the abandonment or the robbery or the cold night alone, but this. Seeing how other people lived, learning that kindness didn't come from wealth, understanding that the things he'd taken for granted were luxuries other people dreamed of. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in days, he slept soundly. Morning came with the smell of pancakes. Not fancy ones with blueberries and whipped cream like the chef made at home, just regular pancakes, but they filled the house with warmth. Lucy was already at the kitchen table, working on homework. Tommy sat across from her, building something with Legos that looked like it had been built and rebuilt 100 times. The colors faded and pieces mismatched. Morning, Mary called from the stove. Sleep okay? Yes ma'am. Good. Grab a plate. Then I need you to help Lucy with something in the garage after breakfast. After eating, Lucy led Ethan to a small garage that served as storage. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, some labeled, most not. Mom wants to reorganize before winter, Lucy explained. We're supposed to sort things by type. Tools in one area, holiday stuff in another, that kind of thing. Ethan looked at the chaos and sighed. This was going to take hours. They worked in silence for a while, Lucy directing where things should go. She was organized, efficient, bossy, actually. Ethan almost smiled. She reminded him of kids at his private school, the ones who always led group projects. These toys are from when you were little? Ethan asked, holding up a box of worn stuffed animals. Yeah, Mom keeps saying we should donate them, but I don't know. They're mine, you know? Yeah, I know. Ethan thought about his own room, filled with toys he'd played with once and forgotten. What's your favorite? Lucy pulled out a stuffed rabbit.
one ear half detached, the fur matted. "This is Hopper. I've had him since I was 3. He looks loved." "He is." She hugged the rabbit, then put it carefully back in the box. "Mom says loved things show it. They get worn and old, but that just means they mattered." Ethan thought about his robot, pristine in his room at home because he'd been so careful with it. Had he loved it, or had he just owned it? Tommy appeared in the garage doorway. "Lucy, want to play? I'm busy." "Please, you promised we could play after breakfast." "I said maybe, and now I'm helping Mom." Tommy's face fell. He looked at the box of Legos in his hands, then back at his sister. "Later, Tommy. I promise." Ethan watched him go, then looked at Lucy. "You play with him a lot?" "When I can. He doesn't have many friends. Kids at school think we're weird because we're poor." The word hung in the air. Poor. Lucy said it, matter-of-factly, no shame, just truth. "That's stupid," Ethan said. "Yeah, but it's true anyway." Lucy moved another box. "He's a good kid. He just gets lonely." That evening, after dinner, Tommy came back with his Legos. This time he approached Ethan. "Want to build something?" Ethan almost said no. He was tired. He wanted to just sit and zone out. But something about the hopeful look on Tommy's face stopped him. "Sure, what are we building?" Tommy's whole face lit up. "A spaceship. A huge one." They cleared space on the living room floor. Tommy dumped out the Legos, and Ethan saw immediately that it was a mismatched collection. Pieces from different sets. Some broken, some improvised. Nothing like the pristine color-coordinated sets he had at home. "I know they're not all the same," Tommy said quickly, defensive, "but they still work." "They're perfect," Ethan said, and meant it. They built together for over an hour. Tommy's imagination was incredible, creating storylines for their spaceship, entire galaxies of adventure. Lucy eventually joined them, and then Mary, all of them on the floor, adding pieces, telling stories, laughing. At one point Ethan sat back and just watched them. This family with their mismatched Legos, and worn stuffed animals, and one bedroom for 3 people. They were happy, actually genuinely happy in a way Ethan couldn't remember being with his own family. When was the last time his parents had sat on the floor with him? When was the last time they'd built something together just for fun? "Ethan?" Lucy was looking at him. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how you guys have less than anyone I know, and you're happier than all of them." Mary, who was helping Tommy attach a wing, paused. "Happiness doesn't come from things, sweetheart. It comes from people, from doing things together, from mattering to each other. But don't you wish you had more, better stuff, nicer things?" "Of course, I'd love to give my kids everything, but I can't, so instead I give them what I can. Time, attention, love. Turns out that's usually enough." Tommy finished the wing and held up the spaceship. "Look, it's done." "It's awesome," Ethan said. And it was. Lopsided, mismatched, held together with determination and imagination. Perfect. That night, Lucy pulled out her homework while Tommy got ready for bed. Ethan saw her struggling with math, erasing and rewriting the same problem over and over. "Need help?" he asked. She looked up, surprised. "You're good at math?" "Yeah, I had a tutor for 2 years. Must be nice." "It was boring, actually. But I learned stuff. Come on, let me see." They worked through her homework together. Ethan explaining, Lucy understanding, both of them bent over the paper at the kitchen table. Mary watched from the doorway, a small smile on her face. When they finished, Lucy looked at her completed homework with pride. "Thanks, Ethan. No problem. Will you help me tomorrow too? We've got a test coming up." "Sure." As Ethan lay on the couch that night, he thought about his own tutors, his expensive school, all the resources he'd had and never appreciated. He thought about Lucy, working so hard with so little, determined to learn despite every obstacle, and he thought about how badly he wanted her to succeed. Not because it benefited him, not because anyone was watching or would praise him for it, just because Lucy deserved it, because she tried, because she cared. Maybe, Ethan thought as sleep took him, maybe this was what it felt like to care about someone else more than yourself. It felt good. The next afternoon, while Mary was at work and Tommy was at a neighbor's house, Ethan and Lucy sat on the back porch steps. The day was clear but cold, their breath visible in small clouds. Lucy had her math book out, preparing for the test, but she seemed distracted. She kept looking out at the street, at the houses beyond, at something Ethan couldn't see. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing." "Lucy," she sighed, closing the book, "do you know what you want to be when you grow up?" Ethan thought about it. "I've never really thought about it. I guess I always figured I'd work for my dad's company. That's what everyone expects. But is that what you want? I don't know. What do you want to be?" Lucy's eyes lit up, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked almost shy. "A teacher. I want to teach little kids, like kindergarten or first grade. I love helping Tommy learn stuff, and I think I'd be good at it." "You would be. You explained that math stuff to me better than my actual tutor did." She smiled, but it faded quickly. "Doesn't matter. I probably won't get to." "Why not? College costs money, a lot of money. Mom works as hard as she can, but there's nothing left over to save. By the time I graduate high school, there won't be enough for state school, let alone a teaching program." Ethan had never thought about college costing money. It had always just been assumed he'd go wherever he wanted. His parents had probably been saving since he was born. Maybe they'd already paid for it. He didn't even know. What about scholarships? He asked. I'd need perfect grades. I'm good, but not perfect. And I'd have to work part-time to help Mom, which means less time for studying. She picked at a splinter on the porch step. It's okay. I've got other plans. Like what? Maybe work at the grocery store like Mom. Or the diner. Save up. Maybe take some classes online later when I can afford them. It's not teaching, but it's something. The resignation in her voice made Ethan's chest hurt. She was 12 years old, and already planning for her dreams to fail. That's not fair, he said. Life's not fair. Mom tells us that all the time. You just work with what you've got. They sat in silence for a while. Then Lucy opened her math book again. Come on, help me with these word problems. At least I can ace this test. They worked through the problems together. Lucy was smart, catching on quickly once concepts were explained. Ethan found himself wishing she had access to the tutors he'd had, the resources that would let her shine. You really are good at this, he said as she solved a particularly tough problem. Thanks, I like when things make sense. When there's a right answer and you can figure it out if you try hard enough. Not everything has a right answer. I know, but math does. That's why I like it. That evening Tommy came home with a reading assignment. He struggled with it. The words too big, the sentences too complex. Lucy tried to help, but she had her own homework, so Ethan stepped in. He sat with Tommy on the couch, working through the passage sentence by sentence. Tommy was slow but determined, sounding out words, asking what things meant. When they finished, Tommy looked up at Ethan with pure pride. I did it. You did, all by yourself. Will you help me again tomorrow? Sure, buddy. Mary came home late, exhausted from a double shift. She found her kids and Ethan at the kitchen table, Lucy doing math while Ethan worked with Tommy on his reading. You don't have to do that, she said softly. I know, but I want to. She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Thank you. That night, as Ethan helped Lucy set up a corner of the living room as a quiet study space, she said, You know, when you first got here, I thought you were going to be mean. Why? Your clothes, the way you talked. You seemed like those rich kids at school who make fun of us. I probably would have been mean. A week ago, I definitely would have been. What changed? Ethan thought about Henry's fence, his blistered hands, the weight of carrying that duffel bag. He thought about Mary's thin blanket and her family crammed into one bedroom. He thought about Tommy's joy over mismatched Legos and Lucy's dream of teaching. I did, he said simply. Lucy smiled. Good, because I like this version better. Me too. And standing there in that tiny living room, helping a 12-year-old girl build a study corner from cardboard boxes and determination, Ethan realized something. For the first time in his life, he was proud of himself. Not because someone had praised him or given him a reward, but because he'd done something that mattered to someone else. It was a small thing. Just a study corner, just some help with homework, but it was real, and it was his. On the fourth day at Mary's house, Ethan woke to Lucy and Mary talking quietly in the kitchen. He lay still on the couch, not quite eavesdropping but not announcing himself either. I can't buy them, baby. Not this month. The car needs new brakes and we're already behind. I know, Mom, it's okay. It's not okay. You need those books for your classes. The library only has 2 copies and they're always checked out. I'll share with someone, or copy pages during lunch. It's fine. But her voice wasn't fine. It was tight with disappointment, trying to be brave for her mother. Mary sighed. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I know you are. You're the best mom ever. Ethan heard them hug, heard Mary leave for work, heard Lucy sit back down at the table with her cereal. He waited a few minutes before getting up, pretending he'd just woken. Morning, Lucy said, too bright. Morning. What books do you need? She looked surprised that he'd heard. Just some workbooks for school. Don't worry about it. How much do they cost? Ethan, seriously, it's fine. How much? $60 for both of them. But I'll figure it out. $60. Ethan had spent that on a single meal without thinking, had left more than that as a tip just to show off. And now Lucy couldn't get books she needed because $60 might as well be $600. After breakfast, Ethan went through the duffel bag Henry had packed for him. His old clothes were at the bottom, dirty but still there. He checked every pocket, hoping maybe he'd miss some cash. Nothing. Then his fingers touched something else, hard plastic and metal. He pulled it out. His robot. He'd forgotten it was there, shoved into his jacket pocket before leaving the rest stop. The robot was small, about the size of his hand, intricately designed, limited edition. His parents had bought it for his last birthday from a specialty store in the city. $300. Not that the price mattered to them. It was the meaning that had mattered to Ethan. His dad had given it to him after dinner, just the two of them in his father's study. You like engineering, his dad had said. Maybe this'll inspire you to build something real someday instead of just playing games. It was one of the few times his father had talked to him about the future, about dreams, about potential. Ethan had kept the robot on his desk, looking at it every day. Sometimes he'd hold it while thinking through problems at school. It had become a talisman, a physical reminder that his dad believed he could be more than just a rich kid coasting on family money. Ethan turned it over in his hands, running his thumb over the detailed joints, the tiny LED eyes. He'd never played with it, never risked damaging it. He'd preserved it like a museum piece. His chest felt tight. He couldn't give this up. It was the only thing he had left from home. The only thing that connected him to his parents, to his life before. But $60 would buy Lucy's books. He sat there for a long time, the robot in his hands, his mind spinning. There had to be another way. Maybe he could call his parents, reach them somehow, ask them to send money. Maybe Mary had something he could trade. Maybe. He stopped himself. That was the old Ethan thinking, looking for the easy way out, looking for someone else to solve the problem. The new Ethan knew better, knew that sometimes doing the right thing meant sacrifice, real sacrifice, not just giving away money you'd never miss, but giving up something that actually mattered to you. Lucy wanted to be a teacher. Lucy worked harder than anyone Ethan knew, with less than anyone deserved, and she couldn't get $60 worth of books because life was unfair, and money was tight, and dreams were expensive. Ethan could fix that. Right now, today, he just had to let go.
His hands shook as he stood up. He wrapped the robot carefully in a spare t-shirt and put it in his pocket. Then he went to find Lucy. I need to go into town. Is there a bus or something? There's a bus that runs twice a day. Where are you going? Just need to take care of something. When's the next one? In about an hour. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. The bus ride took 20 minutes. Ethan asked the driver where he could sell electronics and got directed to a second-hand shop 3 blocks from the bus stop. The shop was cramped and crowded, every surface covered with used items. Video games, old phones, tools, jewelry, everything people had sold when they needed cash more than possessions. An older woman behind the counter looked up when he entered. Help you? Ethan pulled out the robot still wrapped in the shirt. His hands were shaking harder now. He unwrapped it slowly, setting it on the counter. I need to sell this. The woman picked it up, examining it with a practiced eye. She turned it over, checked the joints, pressed the button that made the eyes light up. This is quality. Where'd you get it? It was a gift. Parents know you're selling it. Ethan's throat was too tight to speak. He just nodded. She quoted him a price. $65. That's perfect, Ethan whispered. You sure about this? This is worth a lot more than $65. If you sold it online. I don't have time. I need the money today. She looked at him for a long moment, and Ethan had the feeling she saw more than he wanted her to. Saw a kid selling something precious, something that mattered, for reasons that probably made his chest hurt. All right, give me a minute to get the cash. While she went to the back room, Ethan picked up the robot one last time. He remembered his dad's face when he'd given it to him. Remembered promising to take care of it. Remembered every time he'd held it and felt connected to something bigger than himself. I'm sorry, he whispered to it. The woman came back with $65 in small bills. She counted them out on the counter. You change your mind, you got 72 hours to buy it back. After that it goes on the shelf. I won't change my mind. He took the money and left before the tears could start. On the bus ride back, Ethan sat with the bills clutched in his hand, staring out the window. His pocket felt wrong, empty, like a missing tooth, tongue constantly finding the gap. He'd had that robot for less than a year, but it had become part of his identity. The smart kid. The engineering kid, the one with potential. Without it, who was he? A kid who helped a girl buy books. Was that enough? When he got back to Mary's house, Lucy was doing homework at the kitchen table. Tommy was building with his Legos. Everything was normal, ordinary. Ethan put the money on the table in front of Lucy. She looked at it, confused. What's this? For your books, and some left over for whatever else you need. Ethan, where did you get this? I sold something. What did you sell? You don't have anything. He couldn't meet her eyes. It doesn't matter. Just buy the books, okay? Lucy stared at the money, then at him. Her eyes were wide, starting to glisten. Ethan, what did you sell? Something I didn't need anymore. That's a lie. Tell me the truth. Lucy, tell me. So he did. Told her about the robot, about what it meant, about selling it. He didn't cry while he explained, but his voice cracked twice, and he had to stop to breathe. When he finished, Lucy was crying openly. You can't give up something that important for me. I'm not worth— Yes, you are. Ethan's voice came out fierce, almost angry. You're worth that and more. You work harder than anyone I know. You want to help people. You deserve those books and everything else you need to make it. But it was from your dad. I know. And maybe that's exactly why I needed to let it go. To prove I can be more than just his rich kid with expensive toys. To prove I can do something that actually matters. Tommy had stopped building. He was watching them, confused but sensing the importance of the moment. Mary came through the door, home early from her shift. She took in the scene, Lucy crying, Ethan trying not to, money on the table. What happened? Lucy told her, words tumbling over each other. Mary listened, her expression unreadable. When Lucy finished, Mary walked over to Ethan. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Ethan thought about the fence he'd fixed with Henry, about carrying the duffel bag and supporting the old man's weight, about playing Legos on the floor and helping with homework, about every small moment that had brought him here, to this kitchen, to this family, to this person he was becoming. Because someone once gave me food when I was hungry, he said quietly, and shelter when I was cold, and kindness when I didn't deserve it. This is how I pay that forward. Mary pulled him into a hug, sudden and tight. Ethan stiffened, not used to being hugged, then slowly relaxed into it. You're a good kid, she whispered. I hope your parents know that. I don't think they did, but maybe they will now. That night, Lucy insisted Ethan take her bed while she slept on the couch. He tried to argue, but she was immovable. You gave me something I needed, she said. Let me give you something back. As he lay in Lucy's bed, in her tiny shared room, he could still feel the ghost of the robot in his pocket, the emptiness where it had been. But there was something else too, a fullness in his chest that hadn't been there before. The weight of doing something hard because it was right. The knowledge that somewhere tomorrow Lucy would walk into class with new books, ready to learn, one step closer to her dream. And he'd done that. Not with his family's money, not with someone else's generosity, with his own sacrifice, his own choice to value someone else's future over his own comfort. The emptiness in his pocket didn't feel so bad anymore. It felt like freedom. The next morning started like the others. Breakfast at the small kitchen table, Lucy excited about her new books that they'd pick up that afternoon. Tommy chattering about building a new spaceship. Normal, comfortable. Then the doorbell rang. Mary answered it, and Ethan heard voices, familiar voices. His whole body went cold. His parents walked into the kitchen. They looked exactly the same. His mother in her elegant coat, his father in the suit he wore for casual meetings, composed, collected, wealthy, and behind them, almost invisible, was the man in the gray jacket, the security guard who'd been watching from a distance all along. Ethan stood up from the table so fast his chair almost fell over. You're here. Hello, son, his father said. We've been here the whole time, his mother added gently. Well, nearby. Lucy and Tommy had gone silent, sensing the tension. Mary stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. The whole time? Ethan's voice shook. You've been watching me this whole time? Marcus has. His father gestured to the security guard. Making sure you were safe. We were never far. Ethan felt like the floor was tilting. So this was all planned? The rest stop? You driving away? All of it? Yes. Why? The word came out as almost a shout. Lucy flinched. His mother stepped forward. Because nothing else was working, sweetheart. We tried talking to you, tried taking away privileges, tried everything we could think of, but you weren't hearing us, you weren't seeing people, you were becoming someone we didn't recognize, someone cruel. So you abandoned me. We gave you an opportunity to learn, his father said, to experience what life is like without money, without privilege, without someone always there to fix your mistakes. I was robbed. I spent the night freezing. I could have been hurt. Marcus was always close enough to intervene if needed. You were never in real danger. Ethan wanted to scream, wanted to rage at them, but he looked at Lucy and Tommy, watching this family drama unfold in their kitchen. Looked at Mary, who'd opened her home to a stranger. Looked at the empty pocket where his robot had been. The anger drained out of him, leaving only exhaustion. Why are you here now? He asked quietly. Because Marcus called us yesterday, his mother said. Told us what you did, about the robot. Ethan's eyes snapped to the security guard. Marcus nodded once, confirming. That robot was important to you, his father said. I gave it to you because I wanted you to see that you had potential beyond just being my heir, that you could create, build, think. He paused. And you sold it to buy books for someone else's daughter. She needed them more than I needed a toy. It wasn't a toy to you, son. It was a connection to me, to our relationship, to your future. His father's voice was thick with emotion. And you gave it up anyway, for someone you barely knew. Because it was the right thing to do. His mother was crying now, trying to hide it. That's when we knew you'd learned what we'd hoped you'd learn. Which is what exactly? Ethan's voice was bitter. That rich people are terrible? That I should feel guilty for having money? No. His father shook his head. That money doesn't make you better than anyone else. That kindness isn't transactional. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is sacrifice something you value for someone who needs it more. Ethan looked at Mary. Did you know? Were you part of this? No, Mary said firmly. I had no idea. Henry and I just saw a kid who needed help. That's all. Henry. He knows now, his mother said. We contacted him yesterday to thank him, to offer compensation for his time and trouble. He refused it, his father added, a note of respect in his voice. Said you'd already paid him back by fixing his fence. Said you'd earned your keep fair and square. Of course Henry refused. Henry didn't help people for reward. He helped because it was right. Ethan sat back down, suddenly too tired to stand. His parents pulled out chairs and sat across from him. For a long moment nobody spoke. I'm sorry, Ethan finally said.
for how I acted, for who I was becoming. We're sorry too, his mother said, for letting it get that far, for not seeing sooner that we were raising a child who thought money was love and privilege was power. I still don't think what you did was right. Leaving me like that. Maybe it wasn't, his father admitted. Maybe we went too far, but I'm looking at you now and I see someone different. Someone who carried an old man's bag when his back hurt. Someone who helped kids with homework. Someone who gave up something precious to help someone else's dream. He leaned forward. I see the son I'd hoped you'd become. Ethan felt tears building but fought them back. What happens now? Now we go home, his mother said. But first we'd like to thank the people who helped you. She turned to Mary, pulling out her checkbook. For the food, the shelter, the kindness you showed our son. No, Mary's voice was sharp. Put that away, please. It's the least we can do. I said no. I didn't help your son for money. I helped him because he needed help. You turn that into a transaction. You cheapen it. You make it something it wasn't. Ethan's father studied Mary with new respect. Then what can we do? How can we show our gratitude? Mary looked at Lucy, then at Ethan. She seemed to be weighing something in her mind. Your son already thanked us, she said finally, in the way that mattered most. He gave something precious to help my daughter. That's worth more than any check you could write. The books, Ethan's mother said softly. The robot. Yes. Ethan's father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, what if we could help Lucy? Not as payment, as investment, in her future. We have connections to scholarship programs, academic resources. If she's as bright as our son says, and as hard-working, she deserves every opportunity to succeed. Mary's eyes narrowed. Charity. Partnership. Ethan's mother corrected. We have resources. You have a daughter with dreams. Let us help open doors. What she does with those opportunities is up to her. Her success or failure will be hers alone. We're just offering a chance. Lucy, who'd been silent through all of this, spoke up. What kind of help? SAT prep courses. Application support for scholarships. Tutoring if needed. Introduction to teachers' colleges with strong financial aid programs. Ethan's father looked at her directly. I'm not promising you'll become a teacher, but I'm promising you'll have the same shot at it that our son has had at everything. Why? Lucy asked. Why would you do that for me? Because you helped our son become a better person, his mother said simply. That's worth more than you know. Mary looked at Lucy. It's your choice, baby. Lucy looked at Ethan. He nodded, trying to tell her it was okay, that his parents might be complicated but they kept their word. Okay, Lucy said quietly. Thank you. As Ethan's parents worked out details with Mary, Ethan walked outside with Lucy and Tommy. They sat on the porch steps, the same place he and Lucy had talked about dreams. You're leaving, Tommy said. Not a question. Yeah, buddy. I have to go home. Will you come back? Ethan looked at this little boy who'd shared his Legos, who'd trusted a stranger to help him read. I will. I promise. Will you bring more Legos? Ethan laughed, ruffling Tommy's hair. Definitely. Lucy was quiet, picking at that same splinter on the step. Thank you. For the books, for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. You changed my whole life in like a week. That deserves thanks. You changed mine too. She looked at him, surprised. How? You showed me that being good at something isn't about having the best tools or the most money. It's about trying, about caring, about working for it even when it's hard. He bumped her shoulder with his. You're going to be an amazing teacher, Lucy. Those kids are going to be so lucky. She smiled, wiping at her eyes. You're going to be pretty great too, whatever you decide to be. When it was time to leave, Mary hugged Ethan at the door. You take care of yourself, and remember what you learned here. I will, I promise. In the car driving away, Ethan watched Mary's house disappear in the side mirror. His mother reached back and squeezed his hand. We're proud of you, sweetheart. I sold the robot you gave me. I know, and that's exactly why we're proud. His father glanced at him in the rearview mirror. The robot was meant to inspire you to build something. Turns out you did. Just not what I expected. What did I build? Character, son. You built character. Ethan leaned back in the expensive leather seat, exhausted. He thought about the thin blanket at Mary's house, the mismatched Legos, the study corner made of cardboard boxes and hope. He thought about his robot, sitting in a secondhand shop, waiting for someone else to treasure it. And he thought about Lucy, walking into class with new books, one step closer to her dream. The emptiness in his pocket didn't hurt anymore. It felt like the space where something better could grow. 3 weeks later, Ethan stood in his bedroom at home, staring at the space on his desk where the robot had lived. His parents had offered to replace it, to buy him the newest model, the upgraded version. He'd said no. Some things weren't meant to be replaced. School had started again. The other kids at his private school seemed different now. Or maybe Ethan was different. He noticed things he'd never seen before. How some kids always had new stuff while others wore the same clothes every week. How some bragged about vacations while others went quiet when travel came up. He noticed who was kind, and who was cruel, who helped and who hurt, and he noticed that he'd been cruel, a lot. In the cafeteria one day, he saw a younger student drop his tray, food spilling everywhere. The other kids laughed. The boy's face turned red, tears starting. The old Ethan would have laughed too, or ignored it, or possibly made it worse with a comment. The new Ethan walked over, grabbed extra napkins and helped clean up.
Thanks, the kid whispered. No problem. Happens to everyone. That weekend, a box arrived at Ethan's house. No return address, but he knew who it was from before he opened it. Inside was a photo of Lucy and Tommy, both grinning at the camera, holding up report cards, all A's and B's, and a note in Lucy's handwriting. Thank you for believing I could do it. You were right. Trying hard matters more than having stuff. Tell your parents I got accepted into the SAT prep program. I'm going to make you all proud. Love, Lucy and Tommy. P.S. Tommy wants to know when you're bringing those Legos. Ethan put the photo on his desk, in the spot where the robot had been. His mother found him there an hour later, just looking at the picture. You did a good thing, she said, sitting on his bed. I sold a robot. That's not exactly saving the world. You gave up something you valued to help someone else. That's bigger than you think. She paused. We've been talking, your father and I, about setting up a foundation. Educational support for kids from low-income families who want to pursue teaching careers. We want you to be part of it. Why me? Because you understand what we're trying to do. Not from books or reports, but from living it. You know Lucy. You know what she's up against. You can make sure we're actually helping, not just throwing money at a problem. Ethan thought about it, about Lucy's determination, Tommy's dreams, Mary's sacrifices, about how many other kids out there were just as deserving but didn't have anyone to open doors. Okay, I'm in. His mother smiled. We're having the first planning meeting next week. We'd like you there. After she left, Ethan pulled out his phone. He'd gotten a new one, of course, with all the features and upgrades. But he used it differently now. Less gaming, more research. He'd been looking into educational programs, scholarship opportunities, ways to actually help. He texted Lucy. Got your photo. Congrats on the report card. And tell Tommy I'm working on the Lego situation. Her response came fast. You don't have to bring anything. Just come visit. I want to, and I'm bringing Legos anyway. Deal with it. Okay, bossy. Miss you. Miss you too. The next day at school, Ethan noticed a girl sitting alone at lunch. She was new, he thought. Or maybe not new, maybe just invisible. He'd never noticed her before, but then again, he'd never noticed much before. She had one small container of food, eating slowly like she wanted to make it last. Her clothes were clean but worn. Everything about her screamed trying to fit in but can't quite afford to. The old Ethan would have walked past. The new Ethan sat down across from her. Hi. I'm Ethan. She looked up, surprised and wary. Sarah, you're in my English class, right? Yeah, I just transferred this semester. How do you like it so far? She shrugged. It's okay. Different from my old school. They talked for a while. Not about anything deep, just normal stuff. Classes, teachers, the weird cafeteria food. But Ethan noticed how she relaxed as they talked, how the wariness faded. When lunch ended, she smiled. Thanks for sitting with me. That was nice. Same time tomorrow. Really, really. That evening, Ethan's father called him into his study. On the desk was a package. This came for you today. Ethan opened it. Inside was his robot, the same one he'd sold, and a note from the second-hand shop owner. A man came in and bought this yesterday. Paid full price, then paid me extra to ship it to you. Said his son had learned what he needed to learn, and the robot should come home. Thought you should know someone thinks you earned it back. Ethan looked at his father. You bought it back. You earned it back. There's a difference. But I sold it. I made that choice. You did. And it was the right choice at the time. But that doesn't mean you should lose it forever. Sometimes, son, when you sacrifice for the right reasons, the universe finds a way to give back. Ethan held the robot, feeling its familiar weight. It felt different now, not like a prize or a possession, more like a reminder of who he'd been, who he'd become, and who he wanted to be. Thanks, Dad. You're welcome. But Ethan, don't forget what you learned when you didn't have it. I won't. That night, Ethan put the robot back on his desk, next to Lucy's picture. Two symbols, two parts of who he was now. The boy who'd been given everything, and the boy who'd learned to give. A week later, the family drove back to visit Mary, Lucy, and Tommy. The car was packed with supplies, not just Legos, though there were plenty of those, but school supplies, books, warm clothes for winter, things Mary had never asked for but needed. When they pulled up to the house, Tommy burst out the door and launched himself at Ethan. You came back. Told you I would. Lucy followed more slowly, but her hug was just as tight. Mary stood on the porch, arms crossed but smiling. They spent the afternoon together. Ethan and Tommy building elaborate Lego cities, Lucy showing off her SAT prep materials, Mary and Ethan's parents talking about the foundation, about how to help other families without making it feel like charity. As the sun set, they all sat on the porch, Tommy in Ethan's lap, half asleep. Lucy and Ethan's mother discussing colleges, Mary and his father talking about community programs. Ethan's father caught his eye and nodded, a small gesture that meant everything: pride, respect, recognition. On the drive home, Ethan's mother asked, "What did you think? About what? About all of this? The foundation. Going back, seeing them again." Ethan thought about Tommy's joy over Legos, about Lucy's determination with her SAT books, about Mary's quiet strength. I think this is what being rich should mean. Not having stuff, but having enough to help others get what they need. His father glanced at him in the mirror. When did you get so wise? When I spent a week without anything, and learned that the best things in life aren't things at all. His mother smiled. Your robot's back on your desk. I know. How does it feel? Ethan thought about the empty pocket, the second second-hand shop, the choice he'd made, about sacrifice and growth, and becoming someone new. It feels good to have it back, but it felt better to give it away. Why? Because when I sold it, I was choosing someone else over myself for the first time in my life. That mattered more than the robot ever could. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ethan said, I want to do more, with the foundation, not just donate. I want to work, find kids like Lucy, help them, actually make a difference. That's a big commitment, his father said. I know, but I want to do it anyway. His parents exchanged a look, then his mother said, okay, let's make it happen. Months passed, the foundation grew. Ethan spent weekends visiting families, learning their stories, finding ways to help. He failed sometimes, made mistakes, learned that good intentions didn't always equal good results, but he kept trying. Lucy got into a state university with a full scholarship. She called Ethan crying with joy. Tommy learned to read at grade level, then above. His teacher said he had real potential. Sarah, the girl from the cafeteria, became one of Ethan's best friends. She introduced him to other students who needed help, who were struggling, who just needed someone to see them, and Ethan saw them, every single one. 1 year after being left at that rest stop, Ethan stood in the same parking lot. His parents had brought him back, said it was important to remember. How do you feel? His mother asked. Ethan looked at the bench where he'd spent that first cold night, at the spot where his parents' car had been when they drove away, at the rest stop that had been the beginning of everything. Grateful, he said finally, for all of it, the cold, the fear, the hunger, for Henry and Mary, and Lucy and Tommy, for learning what it means to have nothing so I could appreciate what it means to have everything. Do you forgive us? His father asked quietly, for leaving you. Ethan thought about it, really thought about it. Yeah, I do, because you didn't leave me to hurt me, you left me to save me, from becoming someone cruel, someone who thought money was the same as worth. His mother hugged him. You've grown up so much. I had to. The old me couldn't have survived out here. They got back in the car. As they pulled onto the highway, Ethan looked back one last time at the rest stop. A kid was sitting on the bench, looking lost, about Ethan's age, maybe younger, expensive clothes but scared eyes. Ethan almost told his father to stop, almost went back to help, but he didn't, because some lessons, the most important ones, couldn't be given. They had to be earned. Through cold nights and empty stomachs, through kind strangers and hard work, through sacrifice and growth, and becoming someone new. That kid would find his own Henry, his own Mary, his own moment of choice. And maybe, if he was lucky, he'd learn the same lesson Ethan had learned, that a child only truly grows up when they dare to trade what they love for what someone else needs, when they choose sacrifice over comfort, when they realize that being rich isn't about what you have, it's about what you're willing to give away.
5 years later, the community center wasn't fancy. Just a renovated warehouse in a neighborhood most wealthy people drove past without looking. But inside, it was alive. 23 kids sat at tables working on homework, high schoolers helping middle schoolers, college students tutoring the younger ones. All of them here because they wanted to be, because someone had given them a chance. Ethan walked through the main room, 19 years old now, checking in with each table. Stopped at one where a girl struggled with algebra. Need help, she looked up. Maybe 13. Reminded him of Lucy at that age, determined but frustrated. I don't get this one. Ethan sat down, worked through the problem with her, not giving the answer, showing her how to find it herself. When she got it, her whole face lit up. I did it. You did. Now try the next one. His phone buzzed. Text from Lucy running late. Traffic is terrible. Start without me. Ethan smiled. Lucy was in her 3rd year of college now. Education major, obviously. She volunteered at the center every Tuesday and Thursday. Said it kept her grounded. Reminded her why she was working so hard. The door opened. A woman came in with her son, maybe 9 years old, looking scared and hopeful at the same time. Ethan recognized that look. Had worn it himself once. Hi, I'm Ethan. You must be Mrs. Rodriguez. Yes, this is my son Carlos. The school counselor said you might be able to help. He's falling behind in reading. We can definitely help. Carlos, you like building things. The boy nodded. Me too. Come on, I'll introduce you to Tommy. He's great with reading and he's got this awesome Lego project going. As Ethan led them to another table, he saw Tommy look up. 20 years old now, working part-time at the center while taking classes at community college. Engineering, naturally. All those hours building with mismatched Legos had sparked something real. Tommy, this is Carlos. Think you can help him with his reading assignment? Sure thing. Tommy moved over, making space. What are we working on? Carlos pulled out his book. Tommy didn't jump straight into reading. Just started talking about Legos, about building, making the kid comfortable first, just like Ethan had done for him all those years ago. The circle continuing. Ethan's parents walked in carrying pizza boxes. They came every Tuesday, not as donors, as volunteers. Mom helping with college applications. Dad teaching basic financial literacy. 23 kids tonight, Mom said, setting down the boxes. That's a record. 24. Carlos just arrived. Dad looked around the room, at all these kids from families who couldn't afford tutors or prep courses, getting help anyway, because one spoiled rich kid had learned a lesson 5 years ago at a rest stop. We're making a difference, Dad said quietly. They're making a difference, Ethan corrected, gestured at the kids. We're just opening doors, they're the ones walking through. Lucy arrived 30 minutes later, breathless and apologizing. Immediately dove into helping with SAT prep. She had this gift for making complicated things simple, for making kids believe they could do it. She was going to be an incredible teacher. At 8 o'clock, the session ended. Kids packed up, thanking volunteers, making plans for next week. Carlos left with his mom, already reading better than when he'd arrived. Small progress, but progress. As they cleaned up, Sarah, Ethan's friend from school now studying social work, said, I heard back from the grant committee. We got the funding. How much? Enough to open 2 more centers, one across town, one in the next county over. Ethan felt that familiar flutter in his chest, the one he got when something good was about to happen for people who deserved it. We'll need more volunteers. I've got a list. 20 college students ready to start next month. After everyone left, Ethan sat alone in the empty center, looked at the tables where kids had been working, at the bulletin board covered with college acceptance letters from past students, at the photo of Henry that hung near the entrance. Henry had died 2 years ago, peaceful, in his sleep, but his lessons lived on in this place. In every kid who learned that hard work mattered, that kindness was real, that people helped because it was right, not because they'd get something back. Ethan's phone buzzed again. Text from Mom, your father and I are proud of you. Every single day, he looked at his reflection in the darkened window, saw a young man who'd been broken down and built back up, who'd learned that privilege was a responsibility, not a right, who'd discovered that the best way to honor a gift was to give it away. The robot sat on his desk at home, next to Lucy's photo, next to a picture of Henry's fence, next to his college acceptance letter that he'd almost turned down to work at the center full-time. Mom had talked him out of that, said education mattered, that he could do more good with a degree. She'd been right. Tomorrow he had class, business administration and non-profit management, learning how to scale what they were doing, how to help more kids in more places. But tonight, he was just a kid who'd learned a lesson at a rest stop 5 years ago, that the measure of a person wasn't what they had, it was what they gave. And Ethan was just getting started. He turned off the lights, locked the door and walked to his car, drove past the neighborhood that most wealthy people ignored, saw the lights in windows, families making dinner, kids doing homework, people living lives that mattered even though they'd never be rich. And he smiled, because he'd learned something his parents couldn't teach him with words, that the richest life wasn't measured in dollars, it was measured in difference made. And by that measure, Ethan was wealthy beyond belief.